All right, welcome everybody. So again, from the top, I'm Brandon Bruce. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Uncat, and I'm joined by Jared Smith, my co-founder and CTO of Uncat. He's the one that has built the whole thing. So hopefully some of you are here because you use Uncat to help you resolve uncategorized transactions with your clients. If you are new to Uncat, certainly I would be remiss if I didn't put my sales cap on for a second and say we'd love for you to try it. It's probably the fastest, easiest app you will ever implement. So if you go to our homepage at uncat.com, you'll be up and running in a matter of about 60 to 90 seconds on average. Yes, we track that sort of thing. So you can easily get started, invite your clients, and get their responses back on those uncategorized transactions that we tend to have every week and every month. So you don't have to export and send them spreadsheets and wait for their responses. So we're serving several thousand firms. Last year, we helped categorize approximately 175,000 transactions worth almost $500 million. So it's a significant issue that most of us in accounting and bookkeeping deal with. So if you find that you're spending time on uncategorized, more time than you want, and your clients aren't thrilled with the workflow, then please do check out Uncat. We'd love to work with you, and shout with any questions. I'll put my email in the chat. Also, you have it in the calendar invite. I'm Brandon at uncat.com. Let me know if you want to see a full demo of the app or if we can help you get set up in any way. Thankfully, very easy to implement app, and it's just $5 per client per month. So the price is right. Low barrier to entry, and you kind of get your whole client base on there and not break the bank. So anyway, we wanted to bring this event together because Jared is an expert in cybersecurity, and it's relevant for every industry, and it's certainly relevant for the accounting industry, the bookkeeping industry, not only to you all to hopefully protect your firm, protect yourselves against cyber threats, but also to extend that protection to your clients. You're in the position of being a trusted advisor, and so hopefully some of these tips and strategies and frameworks for thinking about security can be helpful as you advise and assist your clients in navigating the growth of their small business. Of course, as these businesses grow, no matter how small or how large a business, everyone out there can be subject to a cyber attack of one sort or another. So being able to help your clients to hopefully preempt and prevent, or if something were to happen, to quickly recover from a cyber event can be a great service that you can offer out to your client base. So with that introduction, I'd like to welcome Jared Smith. He's my co-founder. He's a great friend. We've been friends for many, many years. And so I've been able to track his career and rise. He will share with you a little bit of his resume, but my shorthand version of it is the United States government has trusted him with the top security clearance, and so I trust him. And so we trust him, obviously, with building a great platform for Uncat. And so I think a lot of the advice he can share with you today will be valuable. Also, I will be monitoring the chat. So as he goes through slides, sometimes it's tricky to present and tell a story and at the same time be tracking questions. I'll be keeping track of the questions, so please do chat in with any questions as they come up, whether it's relevant to the slide he's on or not, and I'd be happy to interject and sort of say, hey, Jared, quick question came in about that, or if it's a question that's not pertinent to that particular slide, but we want to address in general, we might save it till a little bit later in the presentation or to the end. But we'd like to get to as many questions as we can and make this as conversational as a webinar can be. So rather than have all of us unmuted, which can be a little unwieldy, just put it in the chat, and I'll answer some questions if I can, and certainly Jared will on the cybersecurity front. It goes without saying, if you have questions about Uncat, I'm happy to chat back and answer, or I'll share it with the group. So yeah, I think we're ready to kick off. This is 2:10, Jared. Let's jump in. I know you want to introduce yourself, and you got some slides that we can sort of.
I'll do that through there. I'm just trying to pull up one other thing. Might need to do that in a second.
Sure.
But yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that later if I need to. So let me share my screen. One moment, please. Let's see. Can everyone hear me okay? Yes?
Yep.
No? Okay, perfect. I can't. Oh my gosh. I hate Google Apps. It's making me do this thing where I have to share or get permissions. Brandon, do you have permissions to share? Because I do.
Sure. I can do it, and then we can.
Yeah, I want to. I definitely need to be able to do it. So give me a second. This is the issue with not using Zoom. 1 second.
You want me to just share it from my side?
Yeah, go ahead and share the first slide, and I'll talk through it while I'm gonna join and rejoin. I don't know why this is being an issue. So go ahead and start it. I'll be right back.
Okay. All right. So we'll get started and we'll be right back. But this is Cybersecurity 101 is what he's titled it, or How Not to Get Hacked. And so I'll provide a little bit more of a color introduction for Jared, which is probably the right thing to do. Why should you trust Jared? He's a senior director of threat research at a big global multi-billion-dollar cybersecurity company with most of the Fortune 100 as customers. He's got a PhD in computer science and published in the foremost selective academic security venues and has 6 patents. And then he's former lead research scientist at the largest Department of Energy national lab, which is called the Oak Ridge National Lab. And for those of you that are interested in history, Oak Ridge is where they did the enrichment of uranium during the Manhattan Project. And it's just about 20 minutes from where I'm joining you on the phone today. And he was also a security engineer at Cisco. He works as an adjunct professor at New York University and at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and he's currently writing a book for O'Reilly. And most importantly, he built Uncat from the ground up. So he's developed a lot of expertise in building accounting technology, specifically with the QuickBooks Online API, QuickBooks Desktop Web Connector, and also with Xero. So we are going to do another webinar in a couple weeks. So for those of you interested in apps, if you have an idea for an app, if you're interested just how apps get built for accounting and bookkeeping, then come join us for that webinar too. Jared will talk about some of the strategies that we've used in building Uncat and sort of bringing it to market from a technical perspective, but also from a business side.
Perfect. Yeah, Brandon, can you hear me?
Yep.
I can share my screen again. So it's actually taking over. Let's see here. Boom. Oh my God. Okay, nope. You're gonna have to share because it still doesn't want to let me. So please don't do that. I don't know. Okay, so like Brandon had in that slide, I want to kind of level set a bit, and so he already introduced me. He did a great job doing that. I look young, but I actually am much older than I look because the industry is not just accounting, which I've been involved with for Uncat in 3 years, and that's been quite a ride. But I've also been doing security and computer science for the better part of 10 years professionally. And one interesting thing about me, unlike a lot of my colleagues in my program when I was in school, is that I wasn't coding since I was 5 years old. A lot of kids now do that, but I was out in the woods building forts, pretending to be in the military. My brother's actually in the special forces, but I'm here fighting many other countries on a daily basis when it comes to the customers that I work with at Scorecard, even with Uncat. There's many, we get hit by attacks every single day at Uncat that are completely blocked ahead of time because of some of the stuff we'll talk about that costs us $20 to stop anyone from Russia or China from registering 1 million accounts in our app and making it slow for everybody else. So this session is for specifically firms, bookkeepers, clients that are not large enough yet to have a dedicated security team or in-house IT team. There will definitely be things that will be helpful for those that do, but I just want to be clear, if you are one of those people and you have 2 people that constantly protect your network and your business, I might do another webinar that's more in that deeper side. For this, I want to keep it as high level as possible with very specific insights and fast things that you can do, as well as just some fun stories. So Brandon, if you can go to the next slide. And yes, I also want to have as much conversation as possible. So like with NYU, I keep my classes the 1 hour a week, about 30% lecture, if not, if even that. And then the rest of the time is basically answering questions and talking about things that you don't usually get to ask someone. I mean, my hourly rate is very expensive. So if you want to hire me to do security for your company, it's going to cost more than most clients will in a year for a week of work. And so I want to be very clear that ask me anything. If you've just got something that you're like, man, should I worry about this? Should I worry about that? There's a chance I helped someone in the Fortune 10, like yesterday, work on that particular thing, all the way down to a small business. So please take advantage of it, and I'd be more than happy to help. So I'm going to start with a question. What do people here, you can put in the chat, is fine, think the top two or one of the top two weaknesses that would lead to the compromise of everything from a small firm of bookkeepers or yourself all the way up to the largest hotel chains in the world, or Google or Facebook or something to that effect? What might be the weaknesses that they're missing that that you all think that could be the result of that? Yeah. So I see some things coming through. Database compromise. That's good. That's something that you kind of be a result of something else. Malware, spyware, people, email. I'm starting to see some things that we're going to get into. Reuse passwords. I don't know if you already have my slides in advance, but Rachel, you are getting close to that. Phishing, yes, all of the above. So this next slide is not meant to make people feel bad, because I'm like this every day, and we all are. And we focus on some things, rightfully so, much more than others, that being our business, what we're here to do on a daily basis. In everyone here's case, it's helping businesses be more profitable and manage their accounts and manage their taxes. But what we're often going to struggle with in these actual 2 points I'll show are thinking about the things that I'm all too familiar with. So Brandon, right there. So it comes down to this. It comes down to the people, time, social aspect. Being careless and inattentive to things that could lead to a compromise. All of those things that people mentioned either was this or will happen because of basic, simple mistakes or lack or failures of realizing that somebody will want to try and come after you or a business like they would everyone else. And then two is thinking that you're not a target. And like I said, I didn't say they didn't have to be technical reasons. I'll give an example for two. We'll go back 1 second, Brandon. I'll give an example for two in the context of one. It's really easy to try new software. We all do that. Like, I mean, we built Uncat. We want people to use it. But even in Uncat, we use a lot of different software to run the business. I don't always, like, it's not my preference to log into a service and have to go find a code and then use that to log in, right? It's not my preference for my personal email address to have a password that's 32 characters. Do I not like doing those things? Yes. But do I do them because I'm worried about what could happen if I don't? Also, yes. And as a real example for two, every single day I'm working with people at Scorecard, the other company the one I work on as well, that people that are out there looking for people to quote unquote hack don't care who you are. They don't care what you do. They will take down hospitals and people will die as a result of what they do. And that happens every year when ransomware hits a network. And almost every single time it's a result of one of these two reasons. They actually manifests itself because of what people mentioned: phishing, clicking on links. So phishing is somebody impersonating someone or trying to get you to click a link. A reused password, or putting something on your network, or having something at your company that you stood up. For example, maybe you put a new email server up just to test or something, or you sent someone a password over text. Somebody that's sufficiently motivated and technical that does adversarial hacking, right? I'll just keep using that word. Doesn't care what someone is. They're going to buy all of these things from places in the internet, and they're going to try every single one of those passwords. They're going to look at a firm regardless of they're important and large or they're small. Because at the end of the day, people that are doing this work, we call them threat actors, they're within the US, they're in Russia, they're in China, they're in North Korea, they're in Syria, they're in the UK, they're all over the place. And they can be nation state affiliated in the sense that they are funded by the government of China to actively hack into US companies. Or they could just be a group of teenagers that are really good at computers and make their name breaching other companies or firms and selling that data to a group that does ransomware. That literally just happened with a group called Lapsus in UK, where it was some people 10 years younger than me, but probably twice as good as me at my job, that were finding passwords of companies, of people on here just like this, selling it to another company, and then that company, a criminal organization, already had code that will scan and find those services and log in and then put ransomware on your network. And that led to a massive outbreak of schools, local businesses, local governments, all the way up to companies as large as Marriott, as large as not necessarily Google or Facebook with ransomware, but people that they serve, getting hacked simply because somebody reused a password or clicked on a link.
Jared, let me click through to the next slide just because
Yeah.
I know we'll have to stay on time.
Yep, go ahead. And it's really the best way to think about this, and how I like to think about it is like diagrams, right? So we're going to look at the bad case. We don't want to be in this case. And just to give a quick explanation, we start at the top. I mean, we have our business. We're not always, everyone's not like this, but many people are. Like 90% of the cases I work helping large and small companies are because someone clicked the link or their passwords were used. But we start with all these things about us out there, all these services, we buy all these apps, whatever. We don't really keep track of what credentials we're using, what settings we have. We're not using safe search, that sort of stuff. Knowing that, we go and do our work on a daily basis, right? We do everything we need to do. We make money for our businesses. We make money for our business. That's my dog. Can you still hear me okay, Brandon?
Yep.
Okay. The day's over, right? And you're on the news, you're reading about something, somebody got hacked, some breach happened. You're like, oh, this is like totally never going to happen to me, right? That would have been the case 10 years ago. But speaking from somebody that works every single day in this business and builds apps like Uncat, that being the biggest thing I work on, everybody is a target. Even we've been a target before, unsuccessfully. Everyone large has been a target. So we read about that. We think it's not something we should worry about. The day is over and we continue to make the same mistakes and patterns that we've been following that don't really feel like mistakes. It's just simply a matter of that's my dog. Actually, I need to close my door. I have two very large German Shepherds and they love to bark at literally everything. We start the next day over and we're going back to work, but we're forgetting that other people that are coming after our companies, us, incidents that are out there, everybody is a target effectively at this point. It's 2023. And as we've already been talking, the systems that I built at Scorecard have already scanned every single one of your company's networks, all of Intuit, all of Google, and pulled down all of the vulnerabilities that are on those. We're doing that to help those companies and making it available to their security teams. Other people are doing it to find ways into the network. And at the end of the day, they don't care who they're going after. I have to make that very clear. So next slide, Brandon.
Yep.
So I briefly want to tell two stories that illustrate this, just to like bring Eloy back to earth. The first story is somebody that's very near and dear to me. It's someone in my family. This particular person has a lot of their own personal emails, right? They also work at a company that has a Google Workspace email, or like think of an Office 365. For their personal email, they've been using roughly the same password for a long time. Don't we all? A lot of people do that for some things. But the mistake was that password was for the main email account for their personal email. And it was being used in services as benign as DoorDash or a login to New York Times or something like that. What happened is one of those other sites that you never think is critical, so it's okay to use a bad password, first mistake, was breached. That password's now online, and that was then used to log into the personal email. Because that personal email shares a password with the work email, that work email now can be hit. In this case, thankfully, it wasn't done in that way. But what this led to is, since you have the personal email, say my Gmail, Jared Smith 359, if that gets breached, I can now somebody could reset the password for my Uncat email. They could reset the password for my Intuit email. They can reset the password for my bank, because you have to have recovery emails for all of this stuff. So just having a weak or reused password that gets leaked for a single email address that you use as a backup for other services, if you don't have multi-factor auth, meaning like you don't get a text or you don't have to put a code in, I can automatically take over every single one of your company's accounts. And for the most part, people use really bad passwords. They don't use password managers. So the first lesson, and you'll get this over and over, is passwords aren't going away. And frankly, even if you use a strong password for your TurboTax login, what is the email address set up as the recovery code on that? Is it your personal email? If it is that password totally random? If it's not, there's a good chance somebody already has it. They just haven't worked their way to that account yet to take it over. And what came out of this particular story is their bank account was drained, and they had to work with a particular vendor, PayPal or Venmo, or it was one of those two. I think it was Venmo, to get that money back. And that's a pretty benign case because they didn't get into the company's network. They didn't reuse it there. But if they had, now they have access to all of this information and data on the people that were customers, which was the medical area. And that's a big deal. But most companies don't think about this, and you see this every single day. So that's an example of where something as simple as not realizing that all of your accounts go back to one place. That's your recovery email. If you don't have multi-factor authentication, you're going to be in for a world of hurt. Specific password manager, I do. I use 1Password. We do it Uncat. LastPass is another one, but LastPass has just been breached over and over and over again. And in the case of 1Password, I even got my mom and my family set up on it, and none of them are very technical. And it took a day or two for them to realize it. I had a few phone calls, but it's insanely cheap for the value it gives you. And on top of that, it will tell you whether your emails are exposed in a breach on the internet. So it's scorecard. Like, I personally have had my team collect about 4.6 billion leaked credentials. My own email and passwords are in there from when I was a kid. I mean, I can go and find almost anybody's personal address and SSN and credit card information because this is all out there. It's been so many breaches now that it's out there. So that's why it's all the more critical to have totally random passwords on core critical services. I'll talk about that in a second. I could care less if your Facebook password is, your name and your birthday and 2 exclamation points, as long as you don't mind that your Facebook's going to be used for spamming somebody like we've all gotten before. But if your passwords for any service on something that's critical to your business are weak, and by that I mean anything non-random, might be a good time to think about it, because you might not be a victim today. You might not be 1 in 5 years, but you could be one, 5 years and 1 day after. And the sophistication of the people out there doing this hacking is growing every single day. And I literally track these people for a living, and it's starting to get very scary. So it's not a fear thing, but it's right. It's something that will continue to affect more people. Even Knoxville, the town we're in, Brandon, and I got hit by ransomware. The whole city's infrastructure was down for 2 weeks. Why would a town that's one of the smallest in the country get hit by ransomware? Well, they had to reuse password. They left something exposed. And in the case of the actors, they were scanning the whole internet every single day. They found it. They decided to push the big red button, and they were in. It was that simple. I mean, it's really not that much more complex than that. It sounds complex, but someone like me could do that in an hour if I wanted to go to prison for it. But I'm not. I noticed, I'll go to the next story here, but I did want to say.
Let me advance the slide.
No, I'm going to tell the next story really quick. Where do you start if you have not done the best in creating separate passwords for every account? I'll talk about that in a second, but it's as simple as this. Email addresses, any email you have, bank account, any accounts you have at work that have access to clients. That's it. Start there. You will if you just do that, if all you take out of this conversation is have a random password that's not reused for your bank account, your emails, and your Intuit account, or Xero, or desktop, or whatever. I mean, you're literally succeeding, because I guarantee you it's, for a lot of you, it's probably not random. And I was in that exact same boat before I got into this field. I'm like, oh my God, I'm seeing this happen to people around me. Something bad could happen to me. Second one, not password use, but phishing. So I worked at a company at one point that had an issue with phishing. Not the one now, it's some time ago. These people try to basically get us to pay them money because they fished something that they fished something that told them what vendors we had that weren't paid yet. They fished that. They came back with a separate email address and said, hey, we're this vendor. We need this money. It's time to pay up, like a normal vendor would, right? Before we were able to make that payment to them, They even created a website and everything. You could go to the website, they mimic the email, and I'll tell you about how to fix that. So it looked like to the people that were non-technical at the company that were getting this phishing email, because it did not get detected, it was that good. It looked like to them it was a real vendor. They were about to wire that money to that vendor because they do this, they just hadn't paid them quite yet. In came the team that I worked on to find out that this had happened, and the adversary made a mistake. They phished us originally. They hadn't gotten their money yet. They were about to if we hadn't come in. But we needed to know who they were and where they were from, and if there's something we could do something about, because I'm a threat researcher. So we emailed them back, pretending to pay them. We put a little invisible tracking pixel in the email. You can paste something into any email you send, and you can see when they open it, and not only when they open it, what computer they're using and where they're located. I could email any one of you now, and if you open it, I'll know that. When they did that, they messed up because they weren't using a VPN, something to hide their IP address. And on top of that, what we had them do is we said, hey, we need to pay you this money that you're telling us we owe you. Can you send over your routing number and your account number? Because we've got to be able to write to that. We've got to wire to them. They messed up and not only opened our email, but sent us that. And at that point, we went and talked to our buddies at the FBI, because we worked with them a good bit at that place we did. And the FBI found that account was a Bank of America account, a local domestic account, even though these adversaries were overseas. And that account already had about $300,000 in it from other people they'd done this to. But as soon as they found it, they froze the account and took the money away from them. All because the people that had phished us originally were dumb enough to open our own emails and trust that we weren't going to do something back to them. So if an adversary that's that complex that already stolen $300,000 from businesses fell victim to phishing by people that are protecting others against phishing, imagine what me and you and all of us are going to do on a daily basis if somebody comes along and claims to be our client, and we're not careful to check the email that it's coming from when they're asking for something weird they haven't before. So that's that other story, just to give an illustration that this stuff is real, and the basics around defending against this are just being cautious, being careful, not careless, and knowing that somebody always wants your money. Somebody always wants your business assets. They always want to make money somehow. They're criminals, but whether they've found you or not, that's always the question. If you get anything out of this, as a second point, is trust nobody. Next slide, Brandon.
Yep, let me go to it. There we go.
So this is where we want to get to. We want to get to a point where we recognize these things. We start with a few of those accounts, our work accounts, email, bank. We've improved. We've made the passwords not random. We might use one password as a password manager, or just literally anything is better than non-random passwords for those accounts. It took me like 3 hours when I went through this with my wife a few years ago when her password was stolen, but they didn't get into everything. That we caught it in time. It took me like 3 hours to go through every single one of the accounts she made. And we're younger, so we've not had as many accounts as my mom would, for example. And it still took 3 hours to go through them. I'm not saying that's what you need to do, but it took like 5 minutes to reset them on the main services. There's no excuse to use a password that I could guess from information I can find about you online, and changing some ones, a 0 to a 0 as the number, or an O to a 0. There's no reason those should be your passwords on something that can affect your business if you lose access. So we kind of shift this to now we do the work we do every day. And when we see something that's insecure, or we see something like, man, I didn't realize I didn't have two-factor auth set up on that. Or if it doesn't have it, I didn't realize I haven't made my password unique. Let me fix that while I'm here. Security should be an iterative process. It should be something you do little by little, and everything you do, consider, okay, would I be okay having this service? Would I be okay getting the service if I knew that one day if I didn't have it, like how would I run my business? And that's where you've got to do the due diligence to know, am I protecting it? Have I vetted that particular vendor? Have I vetted my own software, that sort of thing. And then as you go on, you identify areas that lack that care or that attentiveness you've given before, and you put some defenses in place. Again, the audience I'm speaking to here is that somebody that doesn't have a dedicated IT security team or managed service provider. But as you get larger, it's something to consider, which is having somebody from a local area. A lot of places have a company like this that will be that person for you. And it's much like clients pay you as an accountant. You would pay them a yearly retainer to basically watch your assets, tell you if somebody tried to log into your Intuit account without from Romania or something, which stuff like that does happen. Next slide, Brandon.
Yep.
So we're getting quickly to the question and Q&A stuff, and I just wanted to cover a few things I already did, just like actual specifics, right? Next slide. Talked about this already. Password management. I mean, honestly, if you haven't already, if you leave here and you've got passwords that are, I could guess, that are out there that are non-random, then you should change those first. And if I could share my screen, I'd show you. But let me actually, let me show you, Brandon. Let me send this to you so you can open this up because I can't share my screen. So go ahead and see 1 second. Just to prove that this stuff is already out there and I'm not just like BSing here, because I would not do that. Let's see, give me a second. Oh, here we go. Okay. Brandon, I'm going to put this in the chat and also other people can click on it. If you could just pull up this link here from GitHub and share it on your screen. And then just scroll through it for me. Yeah, next time I'm going to make sure Google will actually show my screen.
Yeah, I'm just going to have to switch which one I'm showing. Hold on a second.
Along with the password stuff, I mentioned a company there that everyone can sign up for free. And actually 1Password, the manager, does include this. I'll put that link too. Everybody could sign up for this, this link here, this company. So just scrolling through here, just kind of scroll through. Yeah. This is few thousand of the hundreds of millions of passwords that are on these publicly accessible sites that are designed to be used by pen testers to probe the insecurity of accounts. So other than these are real passwords as well. I mean, you can stop right here, Brandon.
Yep.
Somebody is doing, obviously names are pretty common, but somewhere down here in 147, that line, it had someone's name and then a string of 7 numbers after it. That you would think that would be random, but the moment that you reuse that password, it's now in a list. And now as a pen tester, I can try every single one of those in about 5 seconds on a modern computer. Yes, there are sites like Uncat that we won't let somebody shove passwords and do that stuffing. If they do that more than 5 times within 10 seconds, they're blocked. They can't log in for a day because that's only people that are bad doing that. But the thing is, if they see that password pop up in a few different places of data breaches they downloaded, it's a good chance you're using it, and they'll just go try all your sites manually. People are people don't realize how much of that stuff is out there. So I sent that link. You should sign up for Have I Been Pwned. Anyone can sign up. You put your email on there, put as many as you want. It's actually owned by it's owned by another security company, but it's I stamp it. They're not going to steal your information. They will tell you whether, in this case, my email, jared@jaredsmith.io, if it comes up in a data breach, because they monitor the whole dark web for this every day. Password reuse is obviously important there. Second key point, and this is the basics, multi-factor authentication. I cannot stress this enough. Any of those core things your password is on, there is not a bank out there that doesn't do MFA at this point. And if you're on that bank, you should find a different bank. Intuit does it. Uncat, we have that feature behind a flag for people that request it. Certainly the largest firms usually want that. But the nice thing about Uncat is that if Uncat's leaked, you're not really, or if your stuff, this is not going to happen, but if it did, that's not as big of a deal as your bank account being hacked, because they can't do anything with this stuff in us. So it's that level of prioritization that you need to apply. Enabling safe search, very important. It's easy to do. It's a one-click on Google and all these other browsers. It will automatically stop you from going to sites that are insecure. And it's not always enabled by default. So on Google, just look up Google Safe Search and we'll send these slides after. The other piece is that, 1 second, let me finish this point, and then Sarah, I'll answer your question. Every single email service that you have, if you have someone technical in your team or know anybody that set it up for you, have them go and make sure phishing protection is enabled and that you've also got records, in this case, they're called SPF. Let us know over email if you want more info on this. I'd be happy to tell you. But what those two acronyms will do is stop somebody from emailing you with someone else's email, even if they don't have access to it. So believe it or not, I could send you an email right now. I could send your client, and I could send you an email with your client company's name in the header. And I could even impersonate their actual domain. And the only way you can see if it's not from your client is by downloading the email file itself and seeing that they've overwritten the email address. So if my email is, McDonald's, NorthShore.com, I could email my accountant as the adversary and get them to click on it because they think it's them and it's not. And that's because those two records are not there. I'm having trouble with Safe Search not allowing me to access secure websites. Any tips? It should have a way to add exclusions to it. So if it doesn't, I'd be surprised. But if it does, you can usually basically exclude certain sites from being blocked by it. That being said, it's also probably something that's good to report to them. On that same note, if you don't have an ad blocker in your browser, you definitely should. There's one that I've used for a long time that's called uBlock. And frankly, that would have stopped me from getting my my house computer hacked so many times when I was in middle school, because I would go to sites, I would mouse over an ad, and mousing over the ad would literally infect my computer, because that's the way malware works. They will work is if you mouse over an ad, it is now running code in your browser because it's displaying stuff. It has access to that frame. And if your browser is out of date, it can compromise your computer. And that sounds really scary, but that's why keeping your browser up to date and having something like an ad blocker safe search is very important. That's that last point, is everything you want to try to keep it updated, especially your web browser. That's where you all do the majority of your work. Keep that updated is really the number one tip from that piece. It's good to have your phone updated if you can. There was a few years ago, you could send a single text to somebody on iPhones and their phone would just shut off, like entirely shut off. That stuff happens. It doesn't happen as much as browser exploits. Because you can think about, there's a million people just like me that are both doing good things to protect companies, but then there's many of them that are literally trying to get into every one of your networks or similar companies, small to large, every day. And they're smart enough to find people that don't update their stuff, that reuse passwords, that don't have multi-factor auth, and consider them the best targets. And you may not notice for months. They may be sitting there and you're into it, slowly draining money from it. That stuff happens. I see it happen a lot. But we can prevent it. Passwords is number one. Don't trust anyone emailing you unless you feel totally confident it's them and it doesn't seem weird. And then 3 is some just basic security hygiene to make sure you and your clients or you and your company at least are using. Slides, yes, we'll send copies, and anything, just let me know. I can send more too. Somebody mentioned this earlier, phishing. There's so many courses out there just to like understand what people do for phishing. I don't have the ability to share right now, but I know some of you may have heard about the Chat GPT AI Revolution chatbot. It will write phishing emails better than 90% of hackers out there. And it's now starting to be used because we're seeing it hitting our customers at Scorecard, and it looks very real. So if you didn't reach out to a client or they don't usually reach out to you, don't open that email, text them, call them, say, hey, did you mean to ask for this file? If you're not doing it through Uncat or through another management tool, and they just straight up emailed you, and they don't usually do that, you should think about whether you should blindly trust what they're saying, especially if they want you to download something. Even a PDF can have malware in it. It's one of the most common delivery mechanisms. It does not have to be executable, because a Word doc or a PDF or an Excel doc, all of them can store malware. And that's like, last time I checked, like 30% of the malware in Windows is Word and PDF documents, because you can embed code into those files. Too technical for here, but again, my point is, don't trust anyone. That's the biggest thing. It's a scary place out there, and a lot of us kind of live without realizing this is a problem until it is a problem. If you do have a website or any services, there's a lot of tools out there now that will host them securely. I mean, a lot of you probably have Squarespace or GoDaddy or WordPress or whatever. Just check with the person that built your site and ask them whether they've got things like DDoS protection enabled. Ask them whether they've got the email records secure. They'll tell you if they have or don't. That's fast stuff for somebody like me to do for our site. Somebody that built your website or helps with your tech, they'll be able to do it fast. But it's not always something you do by default because it's not always enabled by default. Last point on here is like starting to think about maturing cybersecurity at your business and for your firm and clients is if you're still like, man, we're starting to grow as a firm. We have a lot more people. It'd be really bad if we get breached. There are companies, like I mentioned before, that will do they'll do auditing for you, just like tax auditing. Cybersecurity auditing is a whole area of accounting. Many friends I have that are CPAs focus purely on cybersecurity auditing at the Big Four. Because companies like ours at Scorecard and Uncat is even considered getting SOC 2 compliant, which means we have an accountant trained in cybersecurity auditing come and make sure I'm following like 500 different steps in our backend. And while we don't have the SOC 2 compliance, I've already built everything in Uncat to be compliant with it so that when somebody asks us saying, hey, we need this for this deal, we will then just go pay a firm to go confirm that I've already done it. And you can do the same thing for your business, especially as you start growing. It's good to think about that. Find somebody like me that's spent some time building things, has coded before, has IT, security, engineer in their title, somebody in your network. If you know them well enough and you trust them, they can be that kind of voice versus just shooting me an email. Though that being said, more than happy to email you. I might just make sure you sign up for Uncat first. This is the shameless plug. Final slide before questions. When you're getting really advanced, is cyber insurance is a big deal now. It's really hard for companies to get large deals with vendors because Scorecard does vendor risk management. So that's kind of what we build around. We do a lot of work for these cyber insurance companies that validate whether people they're going to underwrite actually have the controls in place. And it's starting to slowly consume the smaller and medium-sized businesses versus just the major companies. So cyber insurance in a nutshell is just like car insurance. If you get hacked and you've already gone through the audit, they will compensate you for loss in terms of reputational damage, in terms of machines being damaged, in terms of customers churning, they'll compensate you for that. It's just like car insurance where they're going to harass you as to whether you met your side, but it is more and more common. In fact, I think it's one of the largest growing insurance segments that's out there right now. Like at Scorecard, I work directly with people like Chubb and Aflac and AIG on a daily basis. Second one here is if you're a larger firm and you want to verify that a vendor that you have is doing things right, you can request them to answer some questions. There's a lot of common security questionnaires out there you can download. CAIQ is one, CAIQ. Brandon and I have done a bunch of those for people. You can ask the vendors to do that stuff if you're really concerned about whether they're trustworthy or not. And then 3 kind of goes into earlier. If you are growing rapidly and you've got more than 5 or 6 people working for you and more than a few dozen to hundreds of clients, it's probably about time to find some firm that can basically keep an eye and overwatch over your business. Some people don't want to have a business that large. That's great. So stick with the first set of slides. Passwords, don't trust anyone, and don't click on things. As a small business, that will protect you 99% of the time in updating your browser. Those are the big things. As you get larger, I can't really think of a firm that's a customer of Uncat that's larger than maybe 100 clients that does not have their own in-house security person or a provider helping them. Not to say that's very standard across the board, but as you get to that size, you have to think about legal liability, and having someone like that to watch over. It's just like paying an accountant as a client. It's something you have to have if you want your taxes to be done. I think that was a lot of information and probably a big dump, but I want to go to the last slide and open up for questions. I skipped this. We've already covered it. I just want to mention this briefly. If somebody gives you a QR code, please don't scan it. If you're at a conference, it might be good to do it, but at least think about it, right? Just think about it.
I think it's a matter of know your source, right? I think getting it at a conference from a known vendor is pretty safe. Getting it off of something posted to a telephone pole on the street, probably not so much.
Same in the same reason that one thing that that Google does to new employees is they'll email them a gift basket of stuff for joining, but they'll include a USB drive in that. And if you plug in that USB drive, and this is a folk tale I've heard. I know some people from it, it's happened. I don't know if they still do it. If you plug that in, it triggers an alert to the security team that says you're at risk. You need to do this training because you can't just be plugging in USB drives you find from anybody. Because it had fake malware on it that would do that. Even overseas, around the military bases, they would leave USB drives around bases, hoping that soldiers would pick them up on the way home and keep it and use it, and then they'd suck all of our intelligence off the network. That happens. The Stuxnet attack and that took down the reactors in Iran back in 2011. That was said, and I didn't work in this area with my clearance, so I don't actually know. But it's discussed that was because they left USB drives around the plant. Somebody plugged into a Windows computer. It jumped over the network to the centrifuges and caused $200 million in damage and fires and explosions and set their program back 10 years. And it did set it back a long time. And it was said that did that via USB drive. Because they weren't going to click an email. Like they were smart about that, but they definitely wanted free stuff. Find a new USB drive. I'm going to plug that in. So kind of little fun fact to leave you with there. And with that, we'll stop at the end and answer as many questions as we have time for in 7.5 minutes. Otherwise, you can ping Brandon or I and be more than happy to point towards other resources. But yeah, I think that was it. So more questions, I'll take them. Keep it. If people want to talk, that's fine too.
Yeah, for sure. Well, first of all, thank you. And I think it's always a good beginning to a bigger conversation, right? Is just to think about the fact that this information is out there. There are tools, apps, resources, courses, etc., that are there to help. So whether it's a phishing course for your employees or a password manager, or just thinking about how do I make some of these passwords different? How do I enable multi-factor on some of my key services like my email account, my CRM, etc. There's pretty low-hanging fruit for things that are good for all of us in our practices, and also good ideas to share with your clients, regardless of the size of business. Many of us serve small business clients. Share with your small business clients and help them save probably a lot of time and eventually a lot of resources on dealing with things that they'd rather be growing their business instead, right? So it's good advice, and certainly any questions that you all have. We've got another several minutes here before the top of the hour. So if you have any questions, please do pop them in.
Or you can speak as well if you want. It's fine.
I think everyone's muted. The chat is probably the easiest.
Chat is okay, cool. But yeah, it's not, I don't want to scare people, but I also just want to be very clear. Like, this is a real thing. It's not something. It is a real thing, and it's when it happens, you would much rather not be spending time on dealing with it. And it's basic stuff you can do. Probably read a bunch of articles about changing passwords to something more random, but I'm telling you, as somebody that does this every day, like that, those articles are right. They're not just there to scare you. They're not there for no reason. That is how stuff happens. Malware, downloading stuff, exposing IPs that you shouldn't have. Absolutely, that's more sophisticated stuff that hackers will go after. But unless you're a company with a lot of developers or engineers, you're probably not going to have IPs and computers exposed to the internet. You're going to be consuming other services versus selling software, selling compute stuff. So yeah.
Cool. Well, if there are no additional questions, yeah, Terry, and Jared already mentioned this. I will post a version of a recording or some highlights from the video to our website. We'll post a version of the slides also. So I'll email out to everybody, obviously, to say thank you for coming. I'll put a link in there with Uncat if you're not already using it and you want to give it a spin. As Jared mentioned in his last slide, we'll send you over a Starbucks coffee for your trouble. We always feel like coffee is good regardless of season, but certainly during busy season. So if you want a coffee while you test out a piece of software that's designed to save you time, fantastic. We'll send that out to everybody. That way you'll be able to watch this or take some tips and tricks from the slides as you see fit. So thank you all. Thank you, Gloria, Rebecca, Tony, everybody for coming.
And Bernie, you asked briefly, can you recommend tools that go through our accounts and identify them? It depends what you mean by accounts, but every password manager, including 1Password, that's good. Once you start to put accounts in there with the existing password, it's as simple as downloading it, and then you don't have to do anything. Every time you enter a password in the site, it'll ask, do you want to save this? So do it for like a week on their trial. You'll then have like 50 accounts in there, however many you have. And then what's cool about it is you go back to it and it tells you which ones are weak, which ones are vulnerable, like they've already been exposed, which ones are reused. And it separates every one of those categories so you can quickly go and look which ones I should do first. That's the great thing about those tools. It's not like 10 years ago where you have to like spend a lot of time. Avoiding LastPass. I mean, I hate to say it. I know people there, but LastPass is not what they used to be. 1Password, frankly, is my only recommendation. I know the guy that founded the company. It's the real deal. And even if they get breached, your passwords are safe. That was the problem with LastPass. A company that's like $1 billion company had an issue as big as them being breached meant everyone's passwords were exposed. And the reason why is because they didn't do one thing. And that one thing was the master password you used to log in. It was not encrypted as well. 1Password did not make that mistake because they had somebody that caught it or was smart enough to do it. So as soon as they got breached, as long as you had reused your master password, they could get into all your other passwords. And guess what? Your master password is designed to be rememberable. It's designed to be non-random. You only have to remember one single non-random password. You know, it can be your name and birthday. I would not do that, but mine is a kind of mix of things about me. And because once you log in, everywhere else, it'll stay active for however long you tell it, just not immediately, not forever. Or only when you open your computer again, you have to put it in again, or touch the ID in your Mac or whatever it may be. Because that's it, you're good. LastPass, the issue is that they didn't encrypt that as well. So if somebody reused master password, well, now they have access to everything. One other thing I'll mention, and I didn't say this earlier, is if you're doing some kind of sensitive business conversation, do not use text. You can use iMessage if you have an iPhone, the blue messages. If you have an Android, do not use text. Why do I say that? Well, I don't want to get into a lot of it because it starts to get it gets very sensitive, but people can read those. And yet not just the service provider like Verizon, AT&T, but it's a very common strategy for attackers to take an old number of yours that you don't use, and then they can get access to all your texts. It sounds crazy, but it is possible. It's not the easiest, but at a minimum, if you're still using that phone for the two-factor auth, then they can reset your password because they have your number. You can even call Verizon and someone can claim to be you, pretend that you lost your SIM, or they say that on your behalf, your SIM card, and then they can take over your account. I mean, there's a ton of articles about that out there. Just Google Verizon phone takeover, and people have had that happen to them. If you're a journalist, if you're an official, there's a reason why they don't use text. They use an app like Signal or Keybase. Those are two big ones. I'll put that in there. Or they have a totally separate phone for this sort of stuff, or they have a phone conversation. That's starting to get more in the wear a tinfoil hat piece. I'm just saying, don't send credit cards, don't send bank information over text. Even email's a bit sketchy, but you can, if you're gonna do it over email and not encrypt it, send them separately. So send the card number over one and send the CVV over another. We're routing on one and account on the other. Sounds crazy, but the reason is if somebody intercepted one of them, but they don't have the other, they can't do anything. Other than that, text about whatever you want, right? I mean, unless you're in a lawsuit, like we've seen before, text get exposed. Just don't send sensitive stuff. People will find it eventually if they're after you. We all want to be that important. I have been personally targeted by people in China and Russia because of where I work and what I do. Most of you will never have that happen, but even people you know that kind of get estranged have been known, and you know, stalkers love to do this kind of stuff. So generally a good idea not to do anything too sensitive over text unless it's one of those apps.
I know we've got to sign out here in a second. I will put a link in. Let's go to the blog post where we promoted the webinar, but I've also just embedded the slides there. So you're welcome to view the slides there, and I think there's utility where you can copy them if you want. But yeah, go ahead and check out that link, and then I know we've got to close it down because it's 3 o'clock Eastern, and we all got to get back to it. So thanks a ton for joining us. Jared's responding by text to the comment above about password management.
Yeah, I'm gonna send a quick link to. Actually, the cool thing about 1Password, and I just remember this, they will actually pay for your. They'll pay for your. You have to switch to 1Password from someone else. There. How many screens do I have? I have 4 in front of me, 2 right here and 2 right here, because I usually have my work computer, scorecard, Uncat, and then personal computer here. I think that's what you're asking, but yeah, I have way too many. It's ridiculous. But yeah, you guys can literally, they will pay for you to switch from another one. If not, trial it. It's really easy. I mean, if you take anything away, take that away, and don't trust people at face value, because people suck. People really suck, and they might not.
That's a negative to end.
Yeah, no, I mean, hey, it's like just that's it. But other than that, protect yourself, and you'll be fine.
Yep, well said. Hey, everybody, thanks again for joining us. If you got questions, reach out to us anytime at uncat.com. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Thumbs up. Thanks, Osa. Bye.